Soulful shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's some social shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hear me. I mean, like, we can pull that clown shit away. This some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones to dodge in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only a few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
Yes, what's going on, people, man? We're back in the building, guys. Make sure you are smashing the like, you're sharing, and you're subscribing to the damn channel, man. What we here for today, man? Now, today sound a little bit different, man. Sound a little bit different. You know, speaking with ends, big up ends every time. You know, we're just looking at like other teams, of course, you know, in the Premier League. Teams are obviously playing well this season and stuff like that. So, of course, you know, you got Nottingham Forest obviously doing really, really well in the Premier League. You know, Brighton obviously still kind of doing their thing, playing really good football. And obviously Bournemouth, you know, another one of those teams who this season, they have been absolutely immense. I don't know what it is about Bournemouth. I don't know or understand why this season is the season where we're seeing teams that we're not necessarily used to, you know, up there, you know, fighting at the top, you know, the upper echelons, you know, of the Premier League. This big six kind of thing is almost looking like a bit of a myth. And to be honest, it's probably good. It's probably good, you know, for just the sanity of football, if I'm being totally honest with you, you know, where we don't have the usual suspects, you know, always up there battling for the top end of the league, European places, potentially in, you know, cup competitions and things like that. And it's really, really good seeing a team like Bournemouth, who obviously changed their manager, you know, in Martin O'Neill, and then getting in Iraola, who, I'll be honest, since he's come in, I think he's definitely surprised me. Now, obviously, Bournemouth fans, for any Bournemouth fans who are obviously watching and listening, and I'm hoping that you guys come in your droves. But I think for any Bournemouth fan out there, I would love to know, you know, and please, if there are any there, let me know in the comments. I would love to know what you guys initially thought when obviously you got rid of Gary O'Neill. Obviously, you've had Eddie Howe, Gary O'Neill, then you've now got, you know, someone who is an unknown entity, you know, to be honest with you, in the Premier League, someone who we don't know. You know, you might have watched a little bit of him, you know, at his previous club, fair enough. But as a whole, listen, look, let's all be honest with each other. We're not watching every team, every game, every manager, every style of play. It's impossible to do so. There's only so many hours in a day, and then focus on your own team and, you know, their own problems and things like that. But, you know, Iraola, I would love to know what Bournemouth fans, you know, actually thought, you know, about him. Obviously, this season, so far, as I said, they're doing really, really well at the moment, currently sitting in 7th in the league. I mean, they're on 37 points, won 10 games already, you know, this season, and have only lost 5, which is obviously less than a Newcastle and an Aston Villa, you know, at this point. And last season, you know, we saw, you know, they finished 12th, you know, with Iraola obviously coming in at the beginning of last season. And listen, even that in itself was kind of deemed pretty decent, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, obviously got Palace there in 10th. They had a really good run towards the back end of the season. Fulham obviously there in 13th. They're just on the same level of points as a Brighton. Unfortunately, it was the goal difference that was always going to hinder them, you know, conceding quite a lot of goals, you know, last season. And obviously this season's still not finished, but I mean, they're only on 26 at the moment, scored 36. And there was always this big conversation, especially because, you know, they sold Dominic Solanke. So we didn't know where this was going to go for this season, right? So you didn't know if it was going to be a good thing. They're getting Ivan Nilsson. You know, he takes a little bit of time to kind of get used to it. Solanke, I feel, especially in an Iraola system, at the time anyway, last season. Now, again, obviously, it's still his first foray into the Premier League. It's his first kind of, you know, stint in English football, right? So when you're looking at someone like Iraola, you're sitting there thinking, all right, what can he do? Solanke's obviously our main guy. He's the guy who gets all the goals. He's the one who, you know, the ball's going to be attracted to the most. Players like Semenyo, the Kluiverts, and, you know, the Cooks and people like that, they're just kind of the supporting it, which is absolutely fine because most teams do have that one single person. Solanke, someone who had brilliant hold-up play, you know, in my opinion anyway, for Bournemouth. He was someone who I felt would link up pretty well with the rest of the team, and he was almost like a respite for that team, you know, the target man. Sometimes let's just get the ball up to Solanke and see if he can hold up play for us, get everybody else, you know, pushed up a little bit further, you know, up the field. And also he's really, really good at finishing. You know, he can head of the ball in the box. He can be a threat to centre backs. You know, he's quite strong. He's quite imposing. We can play crosses into the box, you know, and he can, you know, possibly get on the end of those, and he's quite likely to get on the end of those. He had a lot of facets to his game. So I did really, really rate Dominic Solanke, you know, when he was at Bournemouth. And of course, he was starting to hit the back of the net a lot more frequently. But I think when we're looking at it now, you know, for this season, especially because Solanke's not there and they have now got, you know, Evanilson, I look at it and I think, is it the, I don't want to say the Harry Kane effect, because I don't know if Spurs fans would say that, you know, Tottenham are playing better. I don't know. You'd have to ask Spurs fans, and maybe we'll take a little deep dive into that. But when I look at Bournemouth, I just think that they're playing better football. They look like a more conducive outfit. They look more like a unit, which I think is obviously always going to, you know, be important, you know, for these kind of teams as well, teams like Bournemouth. And I've just been thoroughly impressed. Them and Nottingham Forest, I've said it already, Iraola and Nuno, they're the two managers this season that I've been the most impressed with, because it's almost like you've surprised people, but when you then look at the players, are you that surprised? You know, sometimes you think about it and you think, are you really that surprised? But I mean, you look at some of the results that they've, you know, Bournemouth have gotten this season. 2-2 against Chelsea, beat Arsenal 2-0, beat Spurs, slapped Newcastle 4-1, slapped Manchester United 3-0, beat Manchester City 2-1. That's 6 results there that you could say, Jesus Christ, for a season, like in one season, for us to have gotten all of these results, that's, in my opinion, I think that's like excellent. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think like that is absolutely fantastic. And if you watched all of those games, yes, I know in the Arsenal game, you know, Arsenal did have a man sent off, but Bournemouth were really good in that game anyway. You know, it wasn't like Bournemouth absolutely dogs bollocks, and then, you know, Arsenal just had a man sent off and then it all kind of went to shit. I have to give them credit for that game. But if you look at all of the games, especially the Manchester City one, yes, I know Manchester City, they're going through whatever it is that they're going through, and etc., etc. But regardless, you still got to be there to beat them. You still got to be able to, you know, do your thing in order for you to, you know, get these kind of results. And, you know, when I look at the team, you know, this is just one of a few lineups, you know, that Bournemouth have kind of had, you know, this season, in terms of, it might be even Nilsson potentially up top, you know, Kluivert might be out on the wings as an example, might not be Brooks, it might be Cook, you know, they've just got this, like, it just seems like they've just got this cohesion, you know, for some weird reason. They've just got this crazy cohesion. But when I look at the players, I'm not too surprised. Do you know what I mean? Milos Kerkez, obviously, we already know, in my opinion, between him and, in terms of this season anyway, between him and maybe Anthony Robinson from Fulham, I can't think of another left back who's been better than these two. And Kerkez probably maybe even edges it, you know, so to speak. Such an outlet, you know, for them. And he's such an important part of what Iraola is obviously trying to do. Then you've got the two, I love these two, the two centre-backs. Obviously, as a Liverpool fan, we've got, you know, Van Dijk and you've got Konate. At Arsenal, they've obviously got Gabriel and Saliba. There's not many, would I say, quote-unquote, good partnerships out there. Obviously, I know Nottingham Forest, you know, with their partnership with Murillo in there, Milenkovic, you know, again, good partnerships. I don't care what anybody says. These two are up there as well. Where you rank them, I think is kind of irrelevant. But when we're just talking about partnerships, for me, when I look at Zabini and when I look at 𝐒𝐻𝐿, two absolutely fantastic defenders. And again, it's about forming, and I've said this before, I've said this before about Liverpool, it is about players and teams forming that partnership in certain areas of the pitch. Maybe not all areas. Some areas you can swap them out, you can rotate players in and out, and you should probably still get the kind of same effect as you would as, you know, if player A was in as opposed to, you know, player B. But when I look at like centre back, you have to have a solid centre back partnership. And when I look at, you know, Bournemouth, for me, they've got one of the best centre-back partnerships in Zabini and 𝐒𝐻𝐿. I think they complement each other so well. You've got the cool, calm, and collected. You know, you've got the guy who, I look at someone like Zabini, and I think he's someone who, he's obviously bigger. He's quite aggressive, you know, in his play and stuff like that. And he can be a handful in both boxes, to be honest with you. And he's quite strong, athletic, you know, individual, but he's more of a, like, to me, and I look at him as more like a cover kind of guy, you know, kind of guy who he will get round the back of things, almost, and not to compare players, but just in terms of the mold of kind of what they do, almost a bit like a Van Dijk, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to cover up anything that, say, maybe a 𝐒𝐻𝐿 might not be able to, sort out. And you can kind of see it really and truly in the stats, of the games and stuff like that. Again, I'm not saying they're both flawless. I'm not saying, and heck, I might even be getting it wrong. Heck, Bournemouth fans, you guys might even just tell me, no, it's the other way around. If so, no problem, because I feel like they've both got both facets of the game, i.e., one can drop off while the other steps up a little bit more, and vice versa. I think they can both kind of do that. They're both relatively comfortable on the ball. I really like 𝐒𝐈𝐶𝐁. I think 𝐒𝐈𝐶𝐁 is someone who, I mean, they signed for what, 15 mil, and I look at him and I think to myself, blimey, I mean, at that price, that's how much you got him for? Jesus Christ. I think most teams in the Premier League would take him. 𝐒𝐵iniy as well. I think 𝐒𝐵iniy, obviously older, so he's a lot more, he's at that stage where I think, obviously, I know Bournemouth fans don't want to hear this, but I look at Liverpool, for example, you know, if they're looking for a centre-back, these two would be perfect, in my personal opinion. Those two, and Murillo is obviously there as well, Milenkovic. These other centre-backs from these other teams who we didn't expect to be doing so well, we can see what makes them tick. You put them in a quote-unquote better team, how good would they necessarily be? And I think they've all got, both of these centre backs have got the facets to their game, which allows for them to be able to thrive, in this kind of system. But I think when I look at the midfield, I would say one of the underrated players of this season, if I had to pick some, Ryan Christie would definitely be up there. Whether it be top or not, I guess we'd have to go through all the teams and check it out. He is one of the most underrated midfielders. This guy works like there is no man's business, but he isn't just a workhorse in that Iraola system, to me anyway. I feel like he's also someone who can play a bit of football. He can get the ball down, knock it, pass, go. If he needs to do the box-to-box, if he needs to do the harrying, I think he's got quite a few yellow cards this season, which kind of tells you the kind of player that he is, but he's also someone who can play football. And in an Iraola system, I feel like you are going to be someone who needs to be able to do the pressing and the intense, side of the game and things like that. But can you get the ball down? Can you knock it about? And I think they got quite a lot of players in there, if I'm being honest with you, who I feel can actually do that. Again, Bournemouth fans, please let me know. And then obviously you got these two, in attack in Semenyo and, Justin Kluivert. This season they've been absolutely fantastic, for Bournemouth. Kluivert getting himself 10 Premier League goals so far with 3 assists. Semenyo on 6 with 3 assists as well. So 9 GA, 13 GA over there. I mean, that's pretty good, especially when, again, like I said, you've lost Dominic Solanke. You've lost the, would you say, quote unquote, main source of your goals. You're going to need someone else to be able to fill that kind of gap. And where they've got someone like, or both of these two players, plus the Eva Nilssons, the Brooks, whoever else in there to kind of Sinisterra, players like that who can chip in, I think is absolutely immense for Bournemouth. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I think Bournemouth are, in my personal opinion, doing really, really well. When you're looking at it in terms of like the style of play, I think for Bournemouth, and again, I'm not speaking like an expert or anything like that. So again, please, Bournemouth fans, please, please, please let me know what I'm getting wrong, or if there's anything you agree with, disagree with, whatever it may be. When I think about Bournemouth, right? Obviously, everyone's playing this like tippy-tappy, want to play tiki-taka, prime Barcelona kind of football. And that's fair enough, because that's probably the best football we've ever seen in our lives, right? When I think about Bournemouth, they're quite a direct team. They rely quite a lot on the athleticism of the team. And then it's about creating the moments, creating those actions, those shot-creating actions. They're quite good at doing that, but they're very, very aggressive. You can see here against Nottingham Forest, you can see, with Bournemouth, look at the press. Milos Kerkez, that ball goes out wide. He is on his absolute neck. On the other side now, you can see when I always feel like when I watch Bournemouth, it's like you're trying to almost box teams into like a crowded area. And then you've got your centre backs. You can see number 4 there. You've got your centre backs who are pushed up quite high. You can see obviously because the ball's on the other side, the team is quite narrow or fixated on that right-hand side. So you've got Semenyo obviously on that side over there. I think that might be Sinisterra potentially over there as well. Apologies if it's not. Might be Justin Kluivert. But they're over there. Tavernier as well is another amazing player. Forgot about him. But when they're over there, they're trying to box them in, because once they know if they've got the team high enough, if they can win that ball, and sometimes it might even just be the second ball, if we can win that, they're ready on the go. They're already there in order for them to be able to, get on the attack. And I think that was something that worked really well against, Manchester City, where in this game, I felt like they were almost defending in a 4-4-2 at times. You know, you can see Evanilson and you can see Semenyo both up top there. You can see, obviously, because Semenyo has obviously dropped in there into that, or pushed up there into that kind of forward role, and they've got the 4 players, you know, behind there. Yes, on that left side, it might be a little bit open, but the play is obviously down this side. Once someone like Ake starts dribbling with the ball, Ake doesn't really have many options. Obviously, Manchester City are City, right? They are usually, on a normal given season, they are actually quite good in these kind of situations where they don't mind teams who are pressing onto them, because I think that's Bernardo Silva there. Usually he'll probably, if he pops that ball in, instead of Ake dribbling with the ball, what he probably should have done is popped it into Bernardo Silva. He could probably do that real quick, pop it into Phil Foden, and then it can turn out, right? Obviously, City's not really like that this season. But again, that's also because of the way that I felt that Bournemouth played in this game with this kind of man marking, you know, kind of thing. Because in the end, what then happens is he dribbles with the ball, he loses it, Bournemouth already on the go. And once Bournemouth are on the go, they then create, I think that might potentially have led, you know, to one of the goals of that game. And when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, they've got this direct style of football that they play. And I just think that mixed in with the press, the high intensity, yes, at times, of course, just like anything, you know, in kind of football, there's going to be the weaknesses. Of course there is. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of those, you know, it's just literally just one of those, you know, kind of things, right? But listen, when I think about it, when I'm looking at, you know, Bournemouth in terms of what they're really good at and, you know, their style of play, I am genuinely, you know, quite, you know, impressed. And you can see here, you know, these are the progressive passes that they've obviously made in their ranks. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th. They're ranked 9th in the league, you know, for those progressive passes, because that's what Iraola wants the team to do. He wants the team to get the ball forward as quickly as possible. You know, if it's going to be a direct football, then it's going to be direct football. We'll win that first header potentially. If not, then we're going to win that second header. It's those second balls. But it's those second balls. It reminds me a little bit of Liverpool a few seasons back when they were a bit more in their prime, where it's something that I actually laugh about all the time, because Liverpool from kickoff, they always boot the ball forward, right? And you know, one of the things I remember Jerry telling me was, you know, it's not necessarily about, you know, it's not necessarily about you keeping the ball in certain situations. Obviously, if you can do that, then I'm assuming most teams and managers would want you to do so. But if you can't, it's about giving your team the chance to be able to get that ball. And I feel like with Bournemouth, yes, they've got a direct style of play, but they can obviously knock it about when they need to. But because they also then rely on the athleticism, when they also rely on players like Milos Kerkez, you know, who's able to press really, really high, but also able to get himself back. You've got Ryan Christie in the middle, who can obviously be a bit of a dog, you know, in there. And I don't mean that in the derogatory term. Semenyo, who's obviously a workhorse in that front line, can play left, can play right, middle, up front, whatever, but he can also work the line if you need him to. Even Nilsson, should I say, sorry, he's someone who can also, you know, do the same. It allows for this system to continue to grow. And like I say, you know, it's been a crazy like last couple of seasons, if I'm being honest, you know, for Bournemouth. Obviously Liverpool taking, you know, Richard Hughes, you know, over to Liverpool, but it doesn't really seem to have really mattered, if I'm being honest, to Bournemouth. I think they've kind of just would I say quietly? Yeah, I'll say quietly kind of gone about their business, you know, under Iraola, if I'm being honest with you. I think there's not too much necessarily, I would say, wrong with Bournemouth. And I think if they can keep this up and they can remain consistent this season, I think that they're going to be a massive problem. And who knows, like, you know, European football might be on the horizon for Bournemouth. And Jesus Christ, I mean, would they have thought so, you know, so many years ago? But I do also think, listen, Bournemouth gone down and come back up and things like that. But I do think sometimes with certain teams, I sit there and think to myself, obviously, it's so difficult, right? Because you've got like the big teams and, you know, you got the big six, and you've got the teams who might just be a little bit just under that, and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And then you've got the teams who are always going to be battling relegation and stuff. And I think to myself, sometimes, you know, you're always trying to make that next step up. And how do you do so? And to be honest with you, getting someone like Iraola in, I feel like it's a stroke of genius. At this moment in time, it's looking like a stroke of genius. And I mean, they finished 12th last season. If they were to finish in 10th or above, you've already improved upon your place last season. Guess what? Next season, we go again. Can we get some more signings in? Can we you'll have another season where the team and some of the players would have gotten used to the system, would have gotten used to the style of play, would have gotten used to each other, which is obviously vitally important, especially for someone like Ivan Nilsson, who's obviously just come in. He's gotten used to his teammates. He understands certain movements that he may know that Semenyo might make, or Sinisterra, or Kluivert, Tavernier, whoever it is. When you understand that and you get that level of cohesion, it can only, bring, good rewards. And at the moment, when you've got a manager who plays a very distinct style of play, yes, it might be quite direct, and not, they're not a team I would say are possession-based team, so to speak. I don't think they rank too highly, in my opinion. I can't remember the actual stats, but I don't feel like they rank that highly when it does come to possession. But when you do have a manager like that who can get the best, especially the ability-wise of the players, and get the best out of them, it's a recipe, for greatness. If I'm being totally honest with you, not even a recipe. Usually you say recipe for disaster, but it's actually a recipe for something good to, to actually happen with Bournemouth. So listen, man, I've been thoroughly impressed with Bournemouth this season. I think they are one of the best teams to watch this season in terms of just the level of excitement, but also just seeing how a manager of a team, who are not considered to be one of the bigger teams in the league, how he's able to get the best out of some of these players. And sometimes it is just the simple things in football. As I said before about the style of play and, what they actually try to do in games, sometimes it can just be very, very simplistic, but we overcomplicate things by, oh yeah, he's got to do this and this, that, and the third and blah, blah. Obviously, I'm not saying it's not complicated. Obviously, this is professional football we're talking about, but at the same time, us as fans might overcomplicate what is actually going on. And I don't think Iraola has really done that, to be honest with you. I think he's gotten a style, he's got a style that he is comfortable with. He understood the ramifications, but he also understood what that would mean for the team in terms of how they would play and what that would potentially look like. As I said before, last season they were shipping goals, but again, you almost expect they were scoring quite a lot, but shipping quite a lot, 60 odd goals that they've conceded last season. This season, this on 26. Now I know the season's not finished, but I don't envisage that they concede 60 odd goals. And if they can also improve upon that and potentially even score more, Dominic WHO. You know what I mean? Dominic WHO. You ain't even worried about that guy anymore. And that's how it always should be, because then that shows a level of progression, within your team. So definitely a team I think that, more people should take notice of. Let me know, of course, in the comment section, whether you're a Bournemouth fan, whether you're a fan of, any other team. Let me know what you thought about Bournemouth this season in the comment section. And let me know what other team you would like for me to take a look at, whether it's Brighton, West Ham, Southampton. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, people, and I'll catch you guys soon. Peace.